So I'm just gonna go down the list of all the draft, draft picks, and we'll like go at each one, and not go at each one, but go at the main ones, and just ideas from there. So first pick, of course, was the Bears, and they picked Caleb Williams. Um, one one thing, of course, everybody knew it was gonna be Caleb Williams. One thing that I kind of thought was unfair to Fields is that he didn't really have a whole lot of guys to throw to. Cole Kmet is like a decent tight end, but he made DJ Moore look good this year. And of course, they picked Rome Odunze at 9. Shoot, they could have gotten Marvin Harrison Jr. at 1, and then just kept rolling with Fields, because I thought that Fields had a solid campaign. He didn't really have the best O line, and I know that he got hurt, but he was balling out. I remember I had him in like a couple fantasy leagues, just like starting if like one of my other starters was on a bye or hurt. But to sum it up, I think that Justin Fields kind of did wrong with this, and of course the Bears, like, they would have had the GM's head if they didn't pick Caleb Williams because they needed a quarterback. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I won't say I disagree with what you said. I think Justin Fields is still an elite talent. I think he proved that on the back half of their schedule this past season. They kind of showed what they were capable of with the limited weapons he had. So I agree with you. I think if they had kept Justin Fields, they could have, done the Marvin Harrison route, like you said, and then had the ninth pick as well. You did say if they wanted to, and then he would have been loaded up with talent. But I also kind of think you got to look at the C.J. Stroud kind of route and see what he did this year, his first year, and everyone picked the Texans to be last, and he made something out of nothing. He elevated the talent of Tank Dell and the other receivers around him, and was able to get to the playoffs and proved to be the best rookie quarterback last year, and already probably a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the NFL. So I think if you're Fields, you probably needed to show something like that in one of the years that he was in Chicago. But I think for him, it'll probably be a nice restart in Pittsburgh. I think he will get a chance. I do think that they'll probably go with Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh to start off, but I do think he'll have some packages where he'll get used, and he'll still get to show that talent. And I think Pittsburgh's going to have a little bit better weapons than what he had down in Chicago. But for Caleb Williams, I really like this pick. Usually, if you're a number 1 pick, you're not going into the best situation. For example, Bryce Young with the Panthers and how he did this year.
Right.
But for Caleb, he gets to go in there with DeAndre Swift in the background. In the backfield with him, and as well as Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and I'm forgetting someone else.
I want to say, yeah, there's another wide receiver in there that I think we're both blanking out on that they got that is solid.
In and out.
That's right. Yep, there it is.
So I think, I don't think a number 1 pick usually gets to go into that kind of situation. So I think he's set up right off the bat. But he is going to be in a tough league. The NFC North is it's going to be a gauntlet this year, with the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions all in there.
Yeah.
So it'll be how he does. But like you said, I think this is the obvious pick, and I really like it.
Yeah, one last thing on that is I think it was interesting that they showed like a depth, not a depth chart, like a starting lineup, or of the quarterback along with the wide receivers and running back and tight end for the Bears week 1 of last year, and then what it's projected to be this year week 1, and it looks so much better. But
yeah, I agree 100%, man.
Yeah. Number 2, Jaden Daniels. I don't really have a whole lot. He won the Heisman, and he had a solid campaign. The Commanders, they're going to be interesting just because they're not going to be like great, but Jaden Daniels can show that he can be a good dual threat quarterback. He can run. He can sling it. He's got all the tools. It's just that we'll have to see with the Commanders. Some people were kind of questioning, like, if Drake May or even like Penix should have gotten over him, but I think Jaden Daniels is clear number 2.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels is an interesting one. I think he goes into a difficult situation with the Commanders. The backup quarterback over there, Marcus Mariota, he's got some, veteran leadership, some qualities that he can teach Jaden Daniels since they're both dual threat quarterbacks. But it's probably not the quarterback that you want teaching Daniels at such a young. I mean, I say young, but I think he's like 24, probably going into the league now, since he was in college for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
But he's going in there with a banged up Austin Eckler, who's getting older, getting Terry McLaurin, who I guess you could still say he's in his prime. He's still producing big numbers, but he's going into that older age for a receiver, especially at his size. He's getting banged up now. And then you got Jahan Dotson, and then Luke McCaffrey, who the Commanders drafted, Christian McCaffrey's brother. So I mean, it's not the best weapons for him to go into as far as a rookie situation, which is kind of how you would have thought Caleb Williams would have been with being the number 1 pick, but he kind of just got lucky and got thrown into an amazing situation. But for Jaden, I think the one problem for him is going to be attitude issues. We saw pre-draft all the conspiracies and the rumors that he was trying to not get picked by the Commanders because he was upset with how they were bringing in Drake May and Michael Penix for visits and not just stopping at him. So I think that could be a problem. And, the Commanders having a new head coach this year and Dan Quinn, it'll be interesting to see how if there's any locker room issues throughout the year. But I won't expect much from him in Commanders this year just because, like I said, new coach, not really the greatest weapons. But if he's able to do something with the team, I think that would be tremendous for him and for his future. But I don't expect much from him this year, but I do think he'll be pretty good on down the road.
Mm-hmm. And I think kind of the same thing could be said about Drake May at number 3. A new coach, not really the best wide receivers to throw to. I mean, of course, the Patriots are a storied franchise, but you ran off Belichick. Belichick is known as a development player. Development coach, and so they brought in a solid coach with I forgot his name, but he was an assistant for a while there with the Patriots, and so maybe with a young coach that Drake May can shine. Of course, North Carolina is not known for being a football program, and he made them relevant these past couple of years. His family is a family of athletes, and so I feel like this is another no-brainer once Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams got picked. So.
Yeah, with Drake May, it's kind of interesting. Last year, he was the projected number 1 pick in a really weak class, and then he didn't have such a good year, and so he was able to come back for another year, and he came back into a loaded class of quarterbacks, as we saw with the amount that were picked in this draft. But I think he gets thrown into an interesting situation with Jacoby Brissett being signed to the Patriots this offseason. So I don't know if Drake May is going to start right off the bat or if he's going to be, second string behind him. New head coach with O.J. Mayo being there. He's never coached before, so we don't know anything about him as far as it goes. So I'll be interested to see how he wants to use Drake May. Will Drake May be their saving grace? I don't think so. You got banged up receivers, banged up tight ends. You got, your starting receivers are probably wide receiver 2 or 3 for most teams, not wide receiver 1s. The offensive line was a struggle last year, keeping Zappy up. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, with him not being a dual threat quarterback. Will the offensive line play better this year? Will he be able to stand in the pocket and make good throws? Because I think that's the one thing about him that's positive is his deep arm. So I think if we don't make those throws, it's just will he have the time? So I'll be interested to see how they do there with him.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 4, we've got Marvin Harrison Jr. I think this is a good pick by the Cardinals. They need another guy for Kyler Murray to throw to. Kyler Murray, I've been telling people this. I'm not completely checked out on Kyler Murray still. I still think he has another couple good years. He just got banged up, I want to say, a year and a half ago now. And
Yeah.
he, whenever he came back this past year, the Cardinals were already a dumpster fire. And he came in there and, still threw pretty solid. I'm pretty sure, he won, 2 or 3 out of his last 4 games or something like that, whatever it is. But, and it was hard to, because of course he's already 5'10", 5'11", but throwing to not very well known receivers a whole lot is just a setup for failure. But he made the most of it. Kyler Murray is pretty athletic in general, so to get a top name in this draft like Marvin Harrison Jr., who he had a horrendous quarterback last year with Kyle McCord. At least in my opinion. I watched a couple games here and there, and it's not like Kyle McCord was the worst quarterback, but his accuracy wasn't super great, and Ohio State was pretty good. I'm pretty sure they only lost 1 game, and so Marvin Harrison Jr. made Kyle McCord look like a pretty decent quarterback. He can make Kyler Murray look like a great quarterback. He makes the good reads. He runs a good route. He's athletic. I just think, as long as they do it right, the Cardinals made a great pick here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Kyler Murray still has some good years in front of him. Coming off an ACL injury is not easy. I just came off of one myself, so it's a grind to come back from. But he came back this year. He just picked up right where he left off. Speed is still there, arm's still there, the eye vision that he has is still there. James Conner, tough running back, so that'll open up the backfield. Marvin Harrison's going to come in and be wide receiver 1 right away. He's a talented kid. He's a one-of-a-kind receiver, so obviously you have to take him. Comes from a good background with his dad being a Hall of Fame receiver. So he's got the genetics. He's got everything that you need. He's got all the tools. Big body receiver. Has the weight to be able to take the hits and to absorb the contact of the league. So I'll be interested to see how the Cardinals develop this year. I think they'll be a lot better than they were last year, just with Marvin Harrison there for Kyler Murray. So I think I think he has a good shot of getting Rookie of the Year. I will say.
Mm-hmm. All right, pick number 5, Joe Alt, offensive tackle to the Chargers. Man, this hurt me as a Titans fan because in every mock draft, Joe Alt was supposed to go to the Titans. I think this is definitely the best offensive tackle on the board, and the Chargers were geniuses because they could have gotten a skilled player like Malik Neighbors, but they knew their priorities getting into this draft, and that's to protect Herbert. And I think they did a great job with that. Joe Alt was show that he was probably one of, if not the best, offensive lineman in this draft, and so the Chargers just improved a lot from that.
Yeah, with an offensive line, it's hard to talk about them unless you go in there and you actually watch the tape, because when you're watching the game, you're looking at the quarterbacks, you're looking at the running backs, you're looking at the receivers, you're not really looking at the trenches. But obviously, coming from Notre Dame, they have that background of producing these tough, physical offensive linemen. So I think, the Chargers, could they have probably looked at a skill position for Herbert with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams both gone now, and, Quentin Johnson not producing like he thought he was rookie year? Sure, they could have grabbed Malik Neighbors or Romadunze, but they picked up a lineman to, especially a tackle to guard the outside edge for Herbert. I don't know if he's going to play left or right tackle, so I don't know if he's going to be protecting his blind side or what. But they picked up a guy, like you said, that the Titans all thought they were going to get. So I think it's a good get for them as far as protecting Herbert, who has been banged up the last couple of seasons. But, it only matters if Herbert's going to be able to get someone to throw the ball to. You can block for so long, but are the skill positions going to get open? So I think it's a good pick as far as protection goes, but I do think they missed out on getting a receiver at this spot.
Yeah, well said with that. Number 6, Malik Neighbors to the Giants. I think this was a good pick because Malik Neighbors looked great this past year. It's just tough because you don't know if Daniel Jones is actually a worthy quarterback or not. I mean, just because of like these past couple of years, they've drafted some. I mean, who I thought were solid wide receivers. Of course, I may be a little biased, and this is another SEC one. But I thought that Jalen Hyatt and Wandale Robinson are good wide receivers. But both of them have not really done anything with the Giants, and Daniel Jones has continued to struggle. So picking up another skill position may not have been in the cards for him, but I mean Malik Neighbors is solid. I mean he's a good wide receiver. So I mean it's not a bad pick, but I mean you got to question the priorities with the Giants.
Yeah, and with Marvin Harrison in this draft, a lot of people forget about Malik Neighbors. But if Marvin wasn't in this draft, Malik Neighbors would be that number one wide receiver in any other draft. So I think it's a good pickup for the Giants. That was one thing they were missing last year, was a solid wide receiver one. I love Wandale because we're Kentucky fans, so we're biased there. But he can't be a wide receiver one in the NFL. He can be a wide receiver two or wide receiver three for sure. He's got the talent to be that in the slot, but I don't think he can be that one for you. So I think Malik Neighbors will come in there. He'll slide in at wide receiver one. The Giants are going to have to protect Daniel Jones and give him time back there. Obviously, we saw a big drop-off from him this year compared to the season before when they went to the playoffs. But now they don't have Saquon, so I don't think they'll be relying on the run as much this year. I think it'll be a pass-heavy offense, and so we'll see a lot of Malik Neighbors this year. And so I'd like to pick for them here. It's just a matter of will Daniel Jones pick that quarterback that they thought they drafted.
So number 7 is the. I mean, and I'm not going to go through every single one like this, but I mean, I am trying to go through like the top 10 here. So at number 7, the Tennessee Titans take J.C. Latham from Alabama. So I forgot to say that whenever you're talking about what position that Joe Alt was going to play, I'm pretty sure I want to say left tackle. And why I'm saying that is because I'm pretty sure that J.C. Latham was a right tackle at Alabama, but the Titans are planning to move him to left tackle. It could be the other way around, and I'm just spitting just to spit. But the Titans needed an offensive tackle in general. They've got guys to throw the ball to. They've got D-Hop. They've got Calvin Ridley and Traylon Burks. I forgot the tight end they have. But and even like they've got Tony Pollard in the backfield. Like I mean they've got the offensive weapons, but they need. I mean, the Titans were like 31st in sacks this past year. I want to say, and it's awful. So I mean they had their priorities straight coming into this draft. Get an offensive lineman that's solid. I mean, shoot, it's University of Alabama. I don't think you can miss very often with guys like that just because they've got the best preparation. They play against the best competition. They're ready for the NFL whenever the time is. So I think this is a good pick by the Titans.
Yeah, I think we all know that the one thing the Titans needed is offensive line. I mean, Will Levis got absolutely destroyed back there, and he got destroyed at UK. So it's nothing new for him, but got to protect your quarterback, especially when he's a rookie and he's got years in front of him, and you don't want to cut any of those years out by him getting banged up. So I think going out there and getting a tackle is key. I think they'll probably slide him in on his blind side at left tackle probably, and coming from Alabama, I mean obviously he's got to be pretty good under the reins of Nick Saban in his last year, this past season. Like I said, I haven't watched much of the offensive line tape for this draft, so I can't really say too much about him. But from what others have said on the draft coverage and everything else, I think this is a pretty good pick for them. Could you say it's a little bit of a reach just being at the 7th spot and him being ranked as 5th in his position? Sure. But at this point, you have to get someone that is going to come in and produce, and so you have to take a tackle here at this spot.
Right. All right, we're going into one of the most questionable picks. Number 8, the Falcons pick Michael Penix Jr. And it's not questionable about Penix whatsoever. Me and you have both talked about Penix before. We both love his game. I mean, there's nothing against that at all. I personally think he's one of the best quarterbacks in this draft. The question is, why the heck did the Falcons decide that they needed to sign Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million deal? Because it's only hurting Penix's development to have him sit many years. He's already older. He's probably about like 23, 24, kind of like how Jaden Daniels is. Because he was a true senior. Maybe even a fifth year, I forgot. But I know that it has worked out with Jordan Love with the Packers. But not saying that works every time. I mean, the young guys need their reps. And so Michael Penix Jr., great pick. But why in the heck did you have to think that you have to sign Kirk Cousins? And so that's why the GM kind of looks like an idiot with this. And that's why everyone was questioning it whatsoever. Good pick, questionable team.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when I first saw this pick live. You know, you kind of think, what in the world did you just do, Elena? They just signed Kirk to a 4-year, $180 million contract with $100 million guaranteed. So by the time that his contract's up, Michael Penix is going to be 28 years old. He's had 2 torn ACLs and 2 shoulder injuries. He's a banged up kid. I mean, so you got to think about durability there with him being 28 after the contract runs up. A lot of people compare this to the Patrick Mahomes or the Jordan Love, but the thing about them is they knew that Aaron Rodgers had a year or 2 left before he was going to be out of there. Alex Smith had a year or 2 left before he was going to be out of there. Kirk Cousins is signed for 4 years with the intent of probably playing all 4 years there. And so I think there's a difference between this and the Patrick Mahomes situation. And the other thing is, all the insiders are saying, well, now we kind of understand because, they got a D-end, they got a corner, they got a linebacker, they got the position they needed in later rounds. But you could have got, a first round, fire sure pick here with, Latu or Byron Murphy, who, you could have got one of these defensive players that would have helped you up front, which was your biggest issue, was the pass rush this past year, or in the secondary. And so, it kind of it doesn't make sense. I agree with you. I really like Michael Penix. I kind of wanted him to slide down to the 16th spot for the Seahawks. And, no bias there, obviously, with me being a Seahawks fan. But they picked Michael Penix, and so, you got to roll with it. And I'll be interested to see, is Kirk going to be the same guy he was coming off an Achilles? Because Achilles isn't easy to come off of. It's probably the toughest injury to come up in sports off of. And him being, in his mid-30s now, it'll be interesting to see how he performs. So will Penix see time this year? I think if he does, that's probably a bad thing for them. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, but we'll see.
Yeah. Number 9, Rome Odunze. We don't have to talk about this for a whole lot. I mean, it goes back to the point of Caleb Williams gets another weapon, and I mean, that's what they needed to probably do. Maybe either that or get an offensive tackle or something like that. But I think this is a smart move. Odunze looked good with his teammate who went number 8, Michael Penix. I mean, they made the championship game together. Odunze was a stud. That's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah, I think we touched a little bit about it earlier when we were talking about Caleb Williams and then also Marvin Harrison. But Rome Odunze, wasn't someone we talked about before the season started, really, or the last couple of years as someone to watch out for. I think he kind of just worked really hard to get to his position that he's in now. I think he's a wide receiver 1 for any other team, but he's coming in there with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, who are 2 wide receiver 1s. And so for the Bears, you have 3 wide receiver 1s at each spot. And so I think that's going to be really good for him. I also think that, the field's going to be opened up for him just because of them having Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, you're going to put your third corner on him. I mean, you're not probably going to double him with a safety in the backfield. Those are probably going to be more shaded over towards those other two dudes. So I would expect to see a big uptick from him in, receptions right off the bat. Caleb Williams really seemed to like the pick, through the whole draft process. That's the dude that he really was bragging about the entire time. So I think this is a really good pick for them, and I think the Bears are one of the teams that, won the draft for me.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Number 10, J.J. McCarthy. Next quarterback on the board. He won a good amount with Michigan. He lost like one game as a starter. He's solid. If Justin Jefferson decides to stay, then he's got a solid wide receiver to throw to. It's not like the Vikings are terrible. Whenever they're healthy, they made the playoffs and were looking good. So getting a young, fresh quarterback in there will, probably help. That's pretty much it for that with me.
Yeah, obviously J.J. McCarthy coming off of Michigan. I think a lot of people have questions as to whether or not he's NFL ready. Just with him being in that offense at Michigan, you kind of had some question marks because of the decision making he did. Some games, you watch and they ran the ball the entire game. There was one game, I forget who it was against, but they ran the ball the entire second half because they just weren't getting anything in the pass game. They literally ran the ball every play. They did not pass the ball a single time. So I'll be interested to see how well he develops in the NFL. I'll be interested to see how well he picks it up right off the bat. The Vikings signed Sam Darnold this offseason as a free agent. So is there going to be quarterback competition there? Is Sam going to start? Is JJ going to start? That'll be interesting. I think this is another good situation for a rookie quarterback, just like Caleb Williams. You got Aaron Jones in the backfield, Justin Jefferson, who's probably the best receiver in the NFL right now, Jordan Addison, one of the best young receivers in the NFL, and then you got T.J. Hawkinson, who's a top 5, top 10 tight end. So we'll see if he gets to start right off the bat, or if he's going to sit back and watch for the first couple of games.
Yeah. Moving to number 12, Bo Nix, Oregon, goes to the Denver Broncos. There was a lot of questions with if Zach Wilson was going to get the reins, and it's gonna be a battle to see who starts there. If I were to guess, it's probably going to be Bo Nix. But with that, there's not a lot of help with that team. Because of course, Russell Wilson has had a tough little couple of years with the Broncos, and part of that isn't his fault, just because of who he's throwing to, and also he's getting sacked. But with that, there's question marks, because Bo Nix had a good O-line, and he looked good, but will that translate to the Broncos, who have kind of been a dumpster fire the past couple of years? If Russell Wilson, who was solid for the Seahawks forever, it seemed like, can go to the Broncos and just not win, then what's a young, fresh quarterback gonna do going to the Broncos, who don't really have a lot of options? So it's a big question mark. Good pick. It's just the situational thing. Just is this the best move for that situation? Is Bo Nix going to make the best of his situation?
Yeah, I kind of think Russell Wilson was, pushed out of Denver this past season with Sean Payton for whatever reason. I thought Russell had a good season this past year, a lot better than his first year in Denver. So I don't know what happened there between the coach and the quarterback. Kind of interesting. Also, Bo Nix, I saw on Twitter, kind of looks like Zach Wilson, so it's kind of funny. But I just, when you throw away a quarterback like Russell Wilson, who has the experience and the talent left in him, you kind of got to look at, is the guy we're drafting just as good or better? And I don't think you can say yes for either of those questions. And so, is this a long-term thing? Sure, because he's young. But also you got to look. I mean, I just don't see the Broncos being a very, free agent hotspot for the next few years, even with Sean Payton being there. I mean, they didn't really do anything to bolster their wide receiver core or their secondary. They kind of just kept what they had. And so I just, they needed a quarterback because they lost Russell Wilson, but take it or leave Bo Nix, in my opinion.
Yeah. Number 13, Brock Bowers. Here's kind of another one, almost like the Penix situation. I mean, Brock Bowers, great pick. I mean, dude's been the best tight end in college football the past 2 years. He's, inarguably 3. He has won 2 championships with Georgia, and has just been dominant. I mean, he did hurt his ankle, like, I want to say midway through the year, and so that kind of hurt him. Like, he was a Heisman candidate, and he hurt his ankle. But, so, we knew he was going to get picked high. But the Raiders kind of had a thing where they probably wanted to take one of these quarterbacks, but then they all got taken, and so they kind of felt like screwed over, like, what the heck are we going to do now? And so they took the best player left, and that was Brock Bowers, even though they have Michael Mayer already, which, of course, there's a debate who's better, Brock Bowers or Michael Mayer. That's for another day. But you have 2 starting caliber tight ends on your team now, and you've got Aiden O'Connell as your quarterback, who played subpar as a rookie. Maybe he does better, but I just think with this pick, it was like a panic mode. Like, let's try to get the best available player, because we were planning on trying to get Bo Nix or McCarthy, and we were too late.
Yeah, I think you can almost flip-flop the Broncos and the Raiders here, and it would make a lot more sense than what actually happened. I think if the Raiders had drafted Bo Nix and the Broncos had drafted Brock Bowers, or they had traded that, it would have made a lot more sense for both teams. All due respect to the Broncos tight ends, but those guys aren't tight end ones on any team in the league. They're backup, if anything. Especially behind a Brock Bowers, who is a generational tight end. So I think that would have made more sense for me. I think, I've watched Brock Bowers in person, just going to Kentucky games at Georgia and at Kentucky, and seeing him in person. And, he moves like a wide receiver almost. So he's kind of interchangeable between, moving him in the slot and then moving him inside as a tight end. So I think, is he probably the most talented person there? In this case for the Raiders, it was kind of like just take the best person available because all the quarterbacks are gone. That's probably what happened here. And I'm not sure why they didn't think of trading up, just flip-flopping there with the Broncos to get Bo Nix. I guess they probably didn't see a lot in Bo Nix, but like you said, with Aiden O'Connell and then Gardner Minshew being the quarterbacks there, I'll be interested to see how much they get hit the ball.
Right. With the rest of the first round, I've got a couple guys who I'll just like talk about a little bit. But are there any standouts with the first round that you want to like talk about?
I think everything kind of went the way people kind of thought it would have. I think it was a very more quarterback heavy draft than people thought, with 5 or 6 going to the first 12 picks, so it kind of pushed a little bit of people back. I thought the Chiefs getting Xavier Worthy was kind of a steal for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of their Tyreek replacement. You've got him there, you've got Marquise Brown from the Cardinals, so you got a bunch of speed. You got Rashee Rice, with no pun intended, with the speed with what just happened to him. So you got a bunch of speed guys out there. So are we just gonna throw 4 birds the entire game? Who knows? But I like that pick for them. And then I'm also interested in the 49ers picking Ricky Pearsall in the first round. The whole situation with Debo and what's his name? Brandon Ayuk.
There we go. I couldn't think of it.
So is one of them going to get traded with this pick? Because Ricky's probably going to play the slot. And so does that mean Debo's going to be leaving? Does that mean Ayuk's going to be leaving? I don't know, because Ricky is probably going to come in there and play a lot of snaps right away. I really like him as a receiver. He impressed me this year in college. So I guess those would be my two other just standouts. I think everything else kind of fell into motion.
Mm-hmm. A couple ones that I want to pick on is the Bengals at 18 getting Amarius Mims, offensive tackle from Georgia. He is a hoss. And along with that, the Bengals just completely improved their offensive line so that Joe Burrow doesn't have these nagging injuries once again. I think that they made a great pick with that. Another one at pick 22, Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo goes to the Eagles. He was one of the best cornerbacks in the draft. I mean, I saw like a film breakdown of like he's like very athletic. He can move quick. I mean, of course not a whole lot of people are watching Toledo, but I mean he made their defense go, and I think the Eagles won in the defensive draft from here just because I'll talk about it in the second round too. But another one was Xavier Worthy. Like that was my last one. Like you've got to be kidding me. The Chiefs this past year probably had one of their, you can say, worst wide receiver cores, and they still won a Super Bowl. And they come out and get Hollywood Brown and draft Xavier Worthy from Texas, who had a solid year. I mean, like you said, I think that they stole him. But let me see here. Of course, I mean, so going to the second round, and we don't have to go like through the whole thing. And I'll just jump into a couple ones that I saw. Ladd McConkey to the Chargers is a good pick because I mean he looked good this past year, and going. I mean that's Herbert's wide receiver. Like I mean that's one of them. He'll probably get a good amount of reps. Keon Coleman to the Bills from Florida State. I mean he had a good campaign too with Jordan Travis. And, of course, Josh Allen's Josh Allen. And with Diggs being gone, he's got to throw the ball to somebody. Another defensive thing that I was saying is Cooper DeJean to the Eagles from Iowa. I think he's another solid one. So, I mean, their cornerbacks at the Eagles are solid, along with their defensive line. I mean, the Eagles did a good job. And then, of course, Kool-Aid McKinstry, who a lot of people know for the name. I mean, he's still solid, like, as a player. And, I mean, of course, the Saints are the Saints, but, I mean, any team that gets him, like, I mean, they're going to improve. So, I mean, is there anyone you want to talk about?
Yeah, I like your Keon Coleman one. I thought he could have been a round one player easily. I think he's got the body to be a Hall of Fame receiver. He's got the skill set. He's got all the tools. I think the Bills still need another receiver to be, the team that they want to be with Josh Allen. But I think that's a good start as far as the receiver goes. Ladd McConkey makes a lot of sense because, the Chargers are in desperate need of receivers. The Cooper DeJean one, I don't know how he fell this far in the second round. I thought he was going to be a late first, really early second. So to go to the 8th pick in the second round to the Eagles, who already got Quinyon Mitchell in the first round. So I think, those two players right off the bat for them just increased their secondary tremendously. And they got C.J. Gardner-Johnson back from the Lions. And so the secondary was a big need for them, and they addressed that with the two best corners out there. I think if you look, for the rest of the draft, it kind of went chalk as far as like needs go. I think Adonai Mitchell, receiver from Texas, going to the Colts. I think that's going to be another weapon for the Colts to use. If Anthony Richardson could be healthy, he's got a heck of an arm. So I think with Adonai Mitchell and his speed, he had the new record for the 40-yard dash. I think that's going to set up for a few bombs for him. But everything else kind of just kind of a little bit of chalk as far as team needs position wise.
Mm-hmm. So with the last couple rounds, I only have like three that I want to talk about. Like, I mean, just for a second, and then we can wrap it up from there. But let me scroll down here again real quick. I want to say yes, and so in round 5, is that yes? So two other quarterbacks were taken that, I mean, you can shine the light on. One of them being Spencer Rattler, who used to be like a #1 player in the nation. Didn't do so well at Oklahoma. Did okay at South Carolina. He's going to the Saints, which the Saints quarterback room is the biggest question mark. I mean, I swear every year Taysom Hill plays quarterback for a game. So getting a young quarterback in there, I mean, maybe Spencer Rattler does good with that. I mean, of course, he probably won't be QB1, but I mean, maybe he's a project that works out. And so my next one is Jordan Travis going to the Jets, which he most likely will be QB2, maybe QB3. Just, I mean, because of his age and with him tearing his, I mean, just destroying his leg completely, and he's working at that. But I mean, it'll be interesting because I mean, Aaron Rodgers' days are limited. I mean, everyone knows that, and so I mean, who's going to be the next quarterback for the excuse me, for the Jets? My last one, and this is kind of, I mean, talking about the Chargers, kind of just talking about this, but Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son from USC, went to the Chargers. So I mean that could be. I mean he played pretty solid at USC. I mean, of course not like Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr., but I mean it's not like he's terrible. And I mean he could be like a hidden gem that Herbert throws the ball to, and then like everyone's like, oh, Jerry Rice's son's getting the ball a bunch in L.A. I mean that's nice. So are there any guys in the other rounds that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think Malachi Corley, Western Kentucky receiver. Um, he's a bull in a china shop. I mean, the dude is a physical freak at receiver. I think he's gonna fit in there really well with Aaron Rodgers. I think he has a chance to come in there and start. The Jets were looking to trade up into the second round to pick him. Steve Smith was really high on him as one of his favorites in the draft. So I think the Jets got a steal there with getting him in the third round. From our pro day at Western, the talk of the town was that he was going to go second round from all the scouts that we had talked to. So I think him sliding to the third round, I think that's just because of all the quarterbacks that went in the first round kind of pushed everyone back a little bit. So I think they got a steal in the third round with him. I'm kind of going biased here, talking about Western Kentucky. Now I'm going Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
But Trevin Wallace going in
Yep.
the third round to the Panthers. I think he's got all the tools to go in there and succeed right away. They've got to do something because I mean they won 2 games last year. So I think he's going to slide in there right away and fit really well. He's a freak of nature. He can really seek the ball out well. He's got really good speed for his size. I think he's going to be really good for them. I thought he could have been a second round pick as well. So I like them getting him in the third round. What you said about Spencer Rattler was interesting because I don't know if you saw the story about, why he kind of slid,
Yeah.
but kind of dated back to his Netflix show with QB, like the quarterback show they did when he was in high school. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know really why that would, matter. I mean, that was 5, 6, 7 years ago. Obviously, I mean, people change, and so they interview all these players, so it's like you kind of can pick up on those things. So maybe they didn't see a lot of change in him from those interviews. So I think getting him in the spot that they did was a good spot for them. And I think he'll probably go in there and compete with Derek Carr. Will he win the quarterback competition? Probably not. But I do think it's a good spot for them to get him in. And then other than that, I think. I don't think there was really too much for me as far as standout. I didn't really look at 4th through 7th round too much. I kind of just, go through and read a little bit about it. But, Ray Davis, 4th round.
Oh, yeah.
I think he'll be RB2 right away, right behind James Cook.
Kyron Williams is there.
Oh, is Kyron there?
Yeah.
In Buffalo?
Oh, I thought, no, wrong pick.
Gotcha, yeah.
That's on me.
Yeah, I think he'll slide in there behind James Cook and the Bills as RB2. I think he's gonna play really well there. I think he'll bring a different dimension than James brings. I think they're kind of the same, but I think he's gonna be a little bit more beefier than Cook, and he can do the same things as Cook, and so he might, at the end of the day, beat him out for that spot. But I really like that pick for them. And then obviously you got to talk about Mr. Irrelevant with Brock Purdy being that, and look how successful he was. So the Jets got Jalen Key, safety out of Alabama. Anytime you get an Alabama player, they're probably good. Going to Alabama, he was the 24th in his position as far as ESPN ranked him. They had him at 292 overall, so they picked him a little higher than what ESPN had, but you can never count out Mr. Irrelevant at the end of the day.
Well, that about does it for our NFL draft recap. I mean, if y'all want to say in the comments, who do y'all think won? I mean, we talked about it a little bit. I mean, I definitely think that the Bears had a good draft. I think the Eagles had a good draft. I mean, at the top of my head, but yeah, that's about it for that. I mean, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I think it was an interesting draft. I think, as always, I love the NFL draft. It's always a fun thing to watch. These guys achieve their dreams and everything they worked hard for. So I think it'll be another interesting offseason, and looking forward to the preseason starting up.
Oh, yeah. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Landon, appreciate you coming on once again, and we'll be looking forward to the next podcast.
Yes, sir. Always looking forward to it, man.
Yes, sir. All right, we'll see you.
All right, talk to you later.